She watched a young man beg for his job while tears streamed down his face, and she smiled. For 12 years, this billionaire's wife terrorized everyone she met. But she saved her cruelest treatment for people who looked like him. Nobody dared to challenge her. Nobody even tried until the day a broke black waitress with nothing left to lose discovered her darkest secret. This is the true story of how one woman brought down a monster. Not with money or power, but with a single word. And I promise you, by the end of this story, you'll never look at powerful people the same way again. This is a story about revenge. No, it's about something far more powerful than that. It's about breaking a cycle of silence that has protected bullies for generations. Stay with me. Welcome to Real Black Voices. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you're watching from. Let me tell you a story about power, secrets, and what happens when someone finally says enough. In the heart of Manhattan, there was a restaurant called the Gilded Lily. Not just any restaurant, mind you. This was the kind of place where a single meal could cost more than most people earn in a month. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls. The silverware was actual silver. Even the air felt expensive, thick with the scent of money and privilege. And in this world of luxury and whispers, there was one name that made everyone freeze: Caroline Whitmore. She was the wife of Richard Whitmore, a billionaire who owned half the tech companies on the East Coast. His money built towers that touched the sky. But Caroline, she built something different. She built an empire of fear. Every Friday night at 8 she would arrive, always in the same corner booth, always dressed like royalty, and always ready to destroy someone's life if they dared to displease her. The staff would literally shake when she walked in. They'd seen what she could do. But there was something else everyone noticed. Something people whispered about but never said out loud. Caroline Whitmore had a particular hatred for the black staff members. She would find reasons to humiliate them, to question their competence, to remind them, in her cold, cutting way, that she didn't believe they belonged in her world. There was Jerome, a young black man working his way through college, fired on the spot because his hand got too close to her glass when he was clearing the table. She didn't just get him fired. She watched him beg for his job, tears streaming down his face as he explained he needed this job to pay his tuition. And according to those who were there, she smiled. A cold, satisfied smile. That's the kind of person Caroline Whitmore was. Now, into this world walked a woman named Maya Carter. Maya was 34 years old, and 3 months ago, her life had fallen apart. She'd been working as a research assistant for one of New York's best investigative journalists. She loved that job. She was good at it, too, finding facts that others missed, connecting dots that seemed impossible to connect. But then the newspaper shut down her department. Budget cuts, they said. And just like that, her dream was gone. So there she was, adjusting the stiff collar of a waitress uniform, trying to remember which side to serve the bread from, feeling like she'd fallen from the sky and landed in a completely different universe. But Maya carried something else with her, a memory that had shaped her entire life. When she was 12 years old, growing up in Baltimore, she'd been the only black girl in her class at a private school her mother had worked 3 jobs to afford. One day, a group of older kids cornered her. They called her names, pulled her hair, told her she didn't belong there. And the worst part? The adults nearby just watched. Teachers, parents, staff members. They all saw what was happening, and not one of them said a word. They just looked away. That silence had haunted Maya ever since. The way grown-ups could see cruelty and choose to do nothing. The way people with power could watch someone being destroyed and decide it wasn't their problem. She'd sworn to herself that she would never be one of those people. She would never stay silent when someone needed help. On her first day at the Gilded Lily, an older black waiter named Marcus pulled her aside. Marcus had worked there for 18 years. His face showed every one of those years, tired, worn, but dignified. "See that booth?" he whispered, pointing to the corner. That's where she sits. Caroline Whitmore, wife of Richard Whitmore, the billionaire. You know him, right? Maya nodded. Everyone knew Richard Whitmore. He was in the news constantly. His companies were changing the world. Well, his wife, Marcus continued, his voice dropping even lower. She's our worst nightmare. One wrong move, one tiny mistake, and she'll have you fired. And she won't stop there. She'll make sure you never work in a decent restaurant again. I've seen her ruin people just for fun. He paused, his dark eyes meeting hers with a particular intensity. And Maya, she's worse with us. With black staff. Much worse. Keep your head down. Don't make eye contact. Don't give her any reason to notice you. Maya felt her stomach twist, but also something else. A familiar anger rising in her chest. Is she really that cruel? Marcus's laugh was bitter. Last month, she claimed Jerome's presence was contaminating her space. Those were her exact words. Contaminating. He hadn't even done anything wrong, just stood nearby while serving another table. She made such a scene that he was fired immediately. The poor kid had to drop out of school because he couldn't find work anywhere else in Manhattan. She made calls, you understand? She made sure of it. That night, Maya watched Caroline Whitmore arrive. She moved like a queen entering her throne room. Her dress probably cost more than Maya would earn in a year. Diamonds sparkled at her throat, cold and brilliant. But it was her eyes that Maya noticed most. They were ice blue, sharp, calculating. They swept across the room like searchlights, and Maya could actually see people flinch when that gaze passed over them. But something else caught Maya's attention. The way Caroline's eyes lingered on the black staff members, the slight curl of her lip, the almost imperceptible shake of her head as if their very presence offended her. It was subtle, so subtle that someone not looking for it might miss it. But Maya had grown up watching for exactly these signs. She knew what quiet hatred looked like. Caroline's husband, Richard, walked beside her. He was a tall, distinguished man with gray at his temples, but he looked tired, defeated, like a man trapped in a beautiful prison. Maya was assigned to work near their table, close enough to see everything, close enough to hear. For the first hour, she focused on her own customers, trying to learn the complicated dance of fine dining. But she couldn't help overhearing Caroline's voice. It was soft, controlled, but it cut like a knife. She sent back her wine because she claimed it had a common taste. She complained that the lighting made her husband look old. Every complaint was a test, a way to remind everyone around her that she had power and they had none. Then came the moment that made Maya's blood run cold. A young black busboy named Darnell was clearing dishes from a nearby table. He moved efficiently, professionally, keeping his eyes down the way Marcus had warned Maya to do. But as he passed Caroline's table, she suddenly gasped. "Manager!" she called out, her voice cutting through the restaurant like a blade. "Manager now!" Mr. Harrison, the restaurant manager, appeared within seconds, his face already pale with anxiety. "Yes, Mrs. Whitmore?" Caroline pointed at Darnell, who had frozen mid-step, his face a mask of terror. "This boy brushed against my chair. I felt it. His uniform touched me." It was a lie. Maya had been watching. Darnell had passed by with at least 2 feet of clearance. He hadn't come close to touching her chair. I didn't, ma'am," Darnell stammered. "I swear I didn't." "Are you calling me a liar?" Caroline's voice dropped to that dangerous whisper. "Richard, did you hear that? This person is calling me a liar." Richard Whitmore just stared at his drink, saying nothing. His silence was its own kind of cruelty. Mr. Harrison's face twisted with conflict, but Maya could see the calculation in his eyes. Cross Caroline Whitmore, lose her business, face her wrath, or sacrifice one young man to keep the peace. It wasn't even a choice for him. "Darnell," Mr. Harrison said quietly, "please collect your things. You're done for tonight." "But, sir, I didn't—" "Now." Maya watched Darnell's face crumble. He was maybe 19, 20 at most. probably working this job to help his family, to build some kind of future. And now it was being taken from him because a rich woman had decided to lie. And then it happened. The memory hit Maya like a physical blow. She was 12 again, surrounded by cruel faces, and all around her, adults were looking away, choosing silence, choosing safety, choosing themselves. But Maya wasn't 12 anymore, and she had sworn she would never be one of those people. Before she could stop herself, she spoke. "He didn't touch her chair." The words came out clear and calm, cutting through the tense silence like a bell. Everyone turned to look at her. Mr. Harrison's face went white. Marcus, across the room, closed his eyes in despair, and Caroline Whitmore slowly, deliberately, turned her ice-blue gaze on Maya. "Excuse me?" Maya felt her heart pounding, but her voice stayed steady. "I was watching, ma'am. He passed by with plenty of clearance. He didn't touch your chair." The silence that followed was absolute. No one in the Gilded Lily moved. No one breathed. Caroline's eyes narrowed, examining Maya like she was something unpleasant she'd found on her shoe. "And who," Caroline said slowly, each word dripping with contempt, "are you?" "Maya. Your waitress for the evening." "Maya." Caroline repeated the name like it tasted bad. "Well, Maya, I don't recall asking for your opinion. I don't recall asking for anything from you at all, actually." She turned to Mr. Harrison. "Is this the standard of staff you're hiring now? People who contradict your guests? Who defend—" She waved her hand dismissively at Darnell. "Who defend the help?" "Mrs. Whitmore, I'm so sorry," Mr. Harrison began. "I want her gone," Caroline said flatly. "Tonight. Both of them." "Ma'am, I can assure you—" Did I stutter? Mr. Harrison's mouth opened and closed. He looked at Maya, and she could see the apology forming on his lips. She knew what was coming. She was about to lose her job, just like Jerome, just like Darnell, just like all the others Caroline Whitmore had destroyed. But then something unexpected happened. Richard Whitmore spoke. "Caroline," he said quietly, "that's enough." Everyone froze. Even Caroline looked surprised. Her husband almost never contradicted her in public. "The girl didn't touch you," Richard continued, his voice tired but firm. "I saw it too. You're being—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Unreasonable." For a moment, Caroline's mask slipped. Just for a second, Maya saw something flash in those ice-blue eyes. Not anger, fear. The kind of fear that comes when your control starts to crack. Then the mask was back. Caroline smiled, a cold, tight smile, and patted her husband's hand like he was a confused child. "Of course, darling, you're right. I must have been mistaken." She turned to Mr. Harrison. "The boy can stay. But this one," she nodded toward Maya, "keep her away from my table. I don't want to see her face again." It wasn't a victory. Maya knew that. Caroline Whitmore had simply decided to wait. She'd chosen her battles. And Maya had just put herself on the woman's radar in the worst possible way. As the Ashfords continued their meal, Maya felt Caroline's eyes following her throughout the night. Every time she looked up, there was that cold blue gaze, watching, calculating, waiting. Marcus found her in the staff room later, his face tight with worry. "What were you thinking?" he hissed. "Do you have any idea what she could do to you?" "I couldn't just stand there," Maya said quietly. "I couldn't watch and do nothing. Not again." "Again?" Maya shook her head. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that she lied. She lied to destroy that kid's livelihood, and everyone was just going to let her." Marcus stared at her for a long moment. Then he sighed. "You've got courage, I'll give you that. But courage doesn't pay rent. And it doesn't protect you from people like Caroline Whitmore." He walked away, leaving Maya alone with her thoughts. But here's the thing about Maya's response. Her refusal to stay silent. her willingness to speak up for a stranger. It wasn't what Caroline expected. An emotional outburst would have been a victory. Tears would have been a trophy. But this quiet, professional defense of someone else? This was something different. This was a refusal to play the game by Caroline's rules. And for someone like Caroline Whitmore, whose entire identity depended on everyone following her rules, that was dangerous. Because curious people ask questions. They dig. They find things that were meant to stay buried. Maya had a feeling Caroline Whitmore had a lot buried in her past. That encounter with Caroline lit a fire inside Maya. Not anger, not revenge, but something deeper, a need to understand. In her journalism days, her mentor had taught her something important. The cruelest people often live in the most fragile houses built on lies. You just have to find the right crack. So Maya started looking. Her investigation didn't begin on the internet. It began right there in the Gilded Lily among the staff. Restaurants are like libraries full of stories, and this one was full of stories about Caroline Whitmore. During quiet moments in the staff room that smelled of coffee and cleaning supplies, Maya listened. Remember when she claimed Marcus's handwriting on the check was illegible and unprofessional? One waiter recalled. Made him rewrite it 3 times, then said his hands were too close to her credit card. What about when she made the new hostess, the black girl, Angela, change her hairstyle in the middle of service? Another added. Said her natural hair was distracting and inappropriate. The poor girl had to put it in a bun so tight it gave her headaches. Maya listened to every story, looking for patterns, and she found several. First, Caroline was obsessed with appearances, with performing a very specific role, the sophisticated old money wife. Any crack in that performance sent her into a rage. This suggested something important. She wasn't confident. She was terrified. Second, her cruelty toward black staff members wasn't random. It was systematic, personal, like she was trying to prove something. But prove what? And to whom? One quiet Tuesday night, Maya leaned against the bar where Marcus was polishing glasses. You've been here the longest, Marcus, she said casually. What was Caroline like when she first started coming here? Marcus paused, his cloth circling the rim of a wine glass. Different, he said slowly. Or maybe trying to be the same, but not quite pulling it off. This was about 12 years ago, right after she married Richard. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. And here's the strange thing. Before she married Richard, nobody had ever heard of her. I've worked at every high-end restaurant in Manhattan for 25 years. I know all the wealthy families. But Caroline Whitmore, she just appeared out of nowhere when she got engaged, like she didn't exist before that. A woman with no past. That night, Maya went home to her tiny apartment in Harlem and opened her laptop. She started where any good investigator would, public records. She searched for Caroline's maiden name, which was supposedly Caroline Sterling from a wealthy family in Greenwich, Connecticut. The results were thin. A few women with that name existed, but none matched Caroline's age or background. It was like the name had been invented. So Maya changed tactics. She searched news archives from 12 years ago looking for the announcement of Richard and Caroline's engagement. She found it in all the major papers. The articles all said the same thing. Whirlwind romance, shared love of charity work, Caroline's quiet, respectable background. Too neat, too polished, too perfect. Maya started looking at photos from charity events Richard had attended before meeting Caroline. If she'd been part of that world, her name would appear somewhere. Hours passed. Nothing. Frustration built in her chest. She was chasing a ghost. Then she had an idea. She opened a reverse image search tool and uploaded one of Caroline's official photos from a charity gala 8 years ago. Most results showed the same image repeated across society websites. Useless. But then, on the 15th page of results, something appeared. A link to an old, barely functioning website for a talent agency in Alabama from the early 2000s. Maya's hand trembled as she clicked it. The website was ancient, poorly designed, nearly broken. But on the client page, among dozens of hopeful faces, was a photo that made Maya's breath stop. The girl was younger, maybe 21. Her hair was brassy blonde, over-processed. She wore too much makeup, the kind that tried too hard. But the bone structure was unmistakable. The sharp jaw, the high cheekbones, the cold determination in her eyes. It was Caroline. But the name beneath the photo wasn't Caroline Sterling. It was Carla Jenkins. Maya felt electricity run through her body, the thrill of discovery. She ran a new search. Carla Jenkins, Alabama. The results came flooding in, local news articles from the early 2000s, a mention of her winning a local beauty pageant. And then the jackpot, a link to a fan forum for an old reality television show from 2003 called Trailer Park Divas. The show had followed young women from trailer parks across the South who were desperately trying to escape their circumstances. They were loud, dramatic, and hungry for fame. And one of the show's most notorious cast members, known for her vicious tongue and explosive confrontations, was a woman named Carla Jenkins from Mobile, Alabama. Maya clicked on a video link someone had uploaded. The video quality was terrible, but there she was. A younger, rougher version of Caroline Whitmore, wearing tight jeans and a crop top, screaming at another cast member about a stolen boyfriend. Her accent wasn't the refined, almost aristocratic tone Caroline used now. It was pure working-class Southern, rough, unpolished, dripping with the trailer park she was so desperate to escape. But that wasn't the worst of it. Maya kept searching and found episode recaps, fan discussions, old tabloid articles. And then she found something that made her understand everything. In episode 7, there was a confrontation. Carla Jenkins had gotten into a screaming match with another cast member, a black woman named Destiny Williams. And during that confrontation, Carla had said things, racist things, horrible things, things that got the episode heavily edited, but not before they were recorded. The forum users had pieced together what had happened from various sources. Carla had used slurs. She'd said that people like Destiny didn't deserve to be on television. She'd said worse things, things that made Maya's stomach turn. And here was the connection. Caroline's hatred of black staff members wasn't random. It was who she'd always been. But it was also her greatest vulnerability. Because if the world found out that the elegant Caroline Whitmore was actually Carla Jenkins, a racist reality TV villain from a trailer park, her carefully constructed life would crumble to dust. Maya kept digging. She found an old forum user named Jenny Harris who seemed to know everything about the show. They exchanged emails, then had a phone call. Jenny's voice was warm but tinged with old resentment. "Carla Jenkins," Jenny said. "God, I haven't thought about her in years. She was the villain of that show. Absolutely hated by everyone. After that thing with Destiny aired, or partially aired, the producers basically cut her out of the rest of the season. She had a complete breakdown, disappeared. Then years later, I saw her in a magazine married to a billionaire calling herself Caroline Sterling. She'd done it, erased Carla Jenkins completely." "But the footage," Maya said. "The footage from that episode, does it still exist?" Jenny laughed. "Honey, everything exists on the internet. I know people who have copies, the unedited stuff. It's ugly, really ugly, but it's real." Maya thanked Jenny and hung up. She sat in the quiet of her apartment, the full picture now clear. Caroline's cruelty made perfect sense now. Every time she humiliated a black server, she was trying to prove that she was above them now, that she'd escaped not just the trailer park, but the person she used to be. But she hadn't escaped. She'd just buried Carla Jenkins under designer clothes and borrowed sophistication. And now Maya held Caroline's deepest secret. The question was, what would she do with it? She thought about Jerome crying as he begged for his job. She thought about Darnell, almost destroyed for a lie. She thought about Marcus, who had spent 18 years swallowing his dignity to survive. She thought about Angela, forced to hide her natural hair because Caroline found it inappropriate. And she thought about herself at 12 years old, surrounded by cruelty while adults looked away. No more silence. No more looking away. But Maya wasn't reckless. She knew that going up against Caroline Whitmore required more than courage. It required strategy. So she spent the next 2 weeks preparing. She saved copies of everything she'd found. The photos, the forum posts, the video links, the contact information for Jenny Harris. She stored them in 3 different places: a cloud drive, an email draft, and a USB drive she gave to a trusted friend. She wrote out a timeline of everything Caroline had done to the staff at the Gilded Lily. She documented the pattern of racial targeting. She even found 2 former employees willing to give statements about their experiences. If Caroline tried to destroy her, Maya would be ready. 3 weeks after the Darnell incident, Caroline Whitmore returned. It was a Friday night, and when she walked through the door, tension rippled through the Gilded Lily like electricity. But this time, something was different. She was alone. Richard wasn't with her, and she wasn't dressed in her usual elegant gown. She wore a severe black suit, all sharp angles and hard edges. She looked like she'd come for war. She didn't wait to be seated. She walked straight to her usual table, her cold eyes scanning the room until they found Maya. She lifted one finger, a silent, commanding summons. Mr. Harrison rushed forward to intercept, but Maya shook her head slightly. This was inevitable. This had always been coming. Maya smoothed her apron and walked to the table. "Good evening, Mrs. Whitmore," she said calmly. Caroline didn't return the greeting. She gestured to the chair across from her. "Sit." Maya hesitated. Servers never sat with customers. "I'm on duty, Mrs. Whitmore." "Sit," Caroline repeated, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Or I will buy this restaurant by tomorrow morning and turn it into a parking garage. And everyone here, every single person you've been trying to protect, will be out of a job. Your choice." Maya sat, her back straight, meeting Caroline's gaze steadily. The restaurant watched, confused by this bizarre scene. "I don't know what game you think you're playing," Caroline began, leaning forward, her blue eyes burning. "But let me make something very clear. I have had my husband's legal team investigate you completely. I know about your failed journalism career. I know about your student loans. I know about the tiny apartment you can barely afford." She paused, her voice becoming quieter, more deadly. "I know about your mother, working 3 jobs to send you to that little private school in Baltimore. How sweet, how pathetic. You are nobody." She leaned back, a cruel smile crossing her face. "By the time I'm finished with you, you won't be able to get a job cleaning toilets. I will personally call every potential employer. I will tell them you're a thief, a blackmailer, mentally unstable. I will sue you until you're drowning in legal fees. I will destroy every corner of your pathetic little life. Do you understand me?" Maya listened to the threats without flinching. This was the dragon's fire, the desperate attempt to burn down the threat. But Maya wasn't afraid anymore, because she knew what the dragon was hiding. She leaned forward slightly, her voice soft but carrying steel. "You're right about one thing. I am a researcher, and I'm very, very good at my job." Caroline's smile flickered just slightly. "I know you're not Caroline Sterling from Greenwich," Maya said. "I know you're Carla Jenkins from Mobile, Alabama." Caroline's face tightened, but she held her ground. "Lies." "I know about Trailer Park Divas," Maya continued, her voice dropping lower. "I know about Season 1, Episode 7, the one with Destiny Williams." At the mention of that name, Caroline's composure shattered. The blood drained from her face. Her breath came in short, ragged gasps. "I know what you said to her," Maya continued calmly. "I know about the slurs. I know about the footage that was edited out but never destroyed. The footage that shows exactly who you really are and what you really think about people who look like me." Caroline stared at her, speechless. She looked nothing like a powerful billionaire's wife now. She looked like the terrified girl from her past, her worst nightmare sitting right across from her. Maya took control completely. "Here's what's going to happen now," she said calmly. "You're going to leave this restaurant. You're never coming back. You're not going to harass or threaten anyone on this staff ever again. You're going to leave all of us alone." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "If you don't, if I hear even a whisper of you causing trouble, I will find that footage, and I will release it. I will send it to every newspaper, every website, every person in your social circle. I will make sure the whole world sees Carla Jenkins screaming slurs on camera." Maya leaned closer. "Richard might forgive you for being dramatic about soup, but I wonder how he'll feel when he sees his wife, the mother of his children, calling a black woman what you called Destiny Williams. I wonder how his board of directors will feel, his business partners, his shareholders. How do you think that will play in today's climate?" Each word was a perfectly placed blow. "I've already prepared everything," Maya added. "Copies stored in multiple places. Trusted people who know where to find them if anything happens to me. So don't bother trying to silence me, it won't work." For a long, terrible moment, Caroline just stared. The fear in her eyes slowly transformed into something else. Not hatred, not anger, but defeat. Complete, total defeat. The ghost Maya had summoned was standing right behind her, and it wouldn't go away. Slowly, shakily, Caroline Whitmore, or Carla Jenkins, rose from the table. She didn't say a word. She didn't look at anyone. With whatever dignity she had left, she turned and walked out of the Gilded Lily. The doors closed behind her, and just like that, the curse was broken. A stunned silence filled the dining room. Then from the kitchen, quiet applause began. The staff who had suffered for years were finally free. Mr. Harrison walked over to Maya, his eyes wide with disbelief. "I don't even know what to say," he whispered. Maya finally let out a long breath she'd been holding. She stood up and picked up her water pitcher. "Table 6 needs refills," she said with a small smile. Marcus caught her eye from across the room and gave her a slow, respectful nod. His eyes were bright with something Maya hadn't seen in him before: hope. Maya had faced the dragon, and she'd won. Not with fire, not with fury, but with the quiet, undeniable power of truth. Because bullies, no matter how rich or powerful, are often just scared people hiding behind masks. And when someone finally has the courage to pull that mask away, the bully has nothing left. Caroline's reign of terror was over, and Maya Carter, the waitress who refused to be silent, had done what no one else dared to do. She'd looked the monster in the eye and reminded her that she was human after all. Just a frightened girl from a trailer park in Alabama, wearing a costume that no longer fit. Let me tell you what happened after that night, because this is where the story really finds its meaning. The tale of what Maya did spread through New York's restaurant world like wildfire. Not the details. Nobody knew those. But the fact that someone had finally stood up to Caroline Whitmore and won became legend. "Did you hear about the Gilded Lily?" servers whispered in break rooms across the city. Someone finally put Caroline Whitmore in her place. The story became bigger than the facts, as stories often do. But at its heart was a simple truth. Courage matters. Standing up matters. Refusing to let bullies win matters. Caroline Whitmore was never seen in that part of Manhattan again. She retreated into her mansion in the Hamptons, a ghost in her own gilded cage, haunted by a past she could no longer control. Some people felt sorry for her. Maya wasn't one of them. She had every advantage, Maya told Marcus one evening a few weeks later: money, privilege, opportunity, And she chose to use all of it to hurt people who couldn't fight back, to make them feel small because of the color of their skin. That's not someone who deserves pity. That's someone who needed to be stopped. Marcus nodded, polishing a glass. You did a brave thing, Maya. A good thing. A thing I should have done years ago. You survived, Maya said gently. That took its own kind of courage. But Maya didn't feel particularly heroic. She'd simply done what needed to be done. What someone should have done years ago. What those adults should have done when she was 12 years old in Baltimore. She'd broken the cycle of silence. As for Maya herself, she didn't stay a waitress for long. Her actions that night caught the attention of someone unexpected. A wealthy entrepreneur who'd been dining at the Gilded Lily and witnessed the whole confrontation. His name was James Mitchell, and he owned a private investigation firm that specialized in corporate fraud and civil rights cases. A week after Caroline's departure, he approached Maya with an offer. I've been watching how you handle yourself, he said over coffee. The way you think, the way you stay calm under pressure, the way you research and plan, those are rare skills. I could use someone like you. Maya stared at the business card he'd placed on the table. You want to hire me as an investigator? I want to hire you as my lead investigator, he corrected. The work you did uncovering Caroline Whitmore's past. That's exactly what my clients need. People who can find the truth, no matter how deeply it's buried. People who aren't afraid to stand up to power. Maya looked at the card for a long moment. Then she smiled. A real, genuine smile. When do I start? 3 months later, Maya was back doing what she loved. Investigating, uncovering truth, helping people who needed answers. But she never forgot her time at the Gilded Lily. And she never forgot the lessons she'd learned there. Because here's the thing about bullies, whether they're in a school playground or a 5-star restaurant, they rely on silence. They rely on fear. They rely on people being too scared to speak up, too intimidated to fight back. Caroline Whitmore had ruled through terror for years, not because she was particularly clever or strong, but because no one had ever challenged her. One person standing up, one person refusing to be afraid, was all it took to bring the whole facade crashing down. Maya thought about this often as she worked her new cases. How many tyrants in the world were just like Caroline? People hiding behind money or power or status, using it as a weapon to hurt others, all while desperately trying to hide their own insecurities. The answer, she discovered, was too many. But she also learned something else. For every bully, there were dozens of good people. People like Marcus, who'd survived years of abuse but still showed up with dignity. People like Darnell, the young busboy who'd been nearly destroyed but kept trying. People like the entire staff of the Gilded Lily, who supported each other through impossible situations. Those people mattered more than the bullies. Those people were the real heroes. 6 months after leaving the Gilded Lily, Maya got a phone call that surprised her. It was Richard Whitmore. Miss Carter, he said, his voice quiet and tired. I wanted to thank you. Maya was confused. Thank me? For what? For having the courage to do what I should have done years ago, he said. I knew what Caroline was doing. I knew she was cruel. I knew about her prejudices. But I told myself it wasn't my business, that it was just how she was. I made excuses. I let it continue. He paused, and Maya could hear genuine pain in his voice. We're getting divorced, finally. I should have done it years ago, but I was a coward. You showed me what courage actually looks like. After he hung up, Maya sat quietly, thinking about his words. She hadn't set out to save a marriage or destroy one. She'd simply refused to let someone abuse their power. But sometimes that's all it takes to change everything. And what about Caroline's past? It found its way into the world naturally, as these things often do. Someone on an old reality TV forum made a connection. A gossip blogger picked it up. Within weeks, the story of Caroline Whitmore's true identity was everywhere. She didn't face legal consequences. What she'd done wasn't technically illegal, just deeply cruel. But her social standing, the reputation she'd spent 12 years building, crumbled overnight. The invitations stopped coming. The charity boards quietly asked for her resignation. The people she'd spent years impressing suddenly didn't know her. Maya didn't feel sorry for her. Some consequences are earned. So let me leave you with this, because this is what the story is really about. You don't have to be rich to be powerful. You don't have to be famous to be brave. You don't have to be perfect to stand up for what's right. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to be silent. Refuse to look away. Refuse to let bullies win. Refuse to be one of those adults who watches cruelty happen and does nothing. Maya Carter was just a waitress who'd lost her dream job. She had no money, no connections, no safety net. But she had something more important. She had integrity. She had courage. And she had the absolute certainty that cruelty should never go unchallenged, especially when that cruelty is directed at people because of the color of their skin. That was enough. More than enough. Because the truth is, most bullies are just scared people wearing masks. They're terrified that someone will see who they really are, underneath all the money, the status, the performance. And when someone finally has the courage to look behind that mask, the bully has nothing left. Caroline Whitmore spent years building a perfect image, crushing anyone who threatened it. But it was all built on lies. Lies about who she was, and lies she told herself about who she deserved to look down on. And lies, no matter how expensive they are, eventually crumble. The truth always finds a way out. And sometimes all it takes is one person brave enough to speak it. That person could be anyone. It could even be you.